And so now we get to roll our sleeves up, and we'll turn the time to the next agenda item, which I believe is our budget priority.
Right, you can drive now.
So we'll turn the time over to Scott. Scott, the best way for us to navigate this, this is going to come up, and I guess I'll reach out to you, Scott. What, as we're setting priorities and that, what we've done in the past, that's where we're at today, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes.
As we go through it, in the past, it's been really random, and it's taken a lot of time and a lot of frustration on with some board members, but not all, as we've been going through this process. And I'm wondering if there's a better way to do this, and that is, as we go through the list, because we're not going to get it all done today, that we try to get our top 5 or our top 10, or we just start with the one on the top and leave it there and work our way down as we're trying to move priorities.
Yeah.
Scott, do you have any recommendation as we navigate this part of our board meeting?
So my recommendation is you know, we did a good job yesterday describing enrollment in the WPU. So let's just not, in the interest of time and effort, I don't think we need to really concern ourselves with that. I think the main concern should be around all of the different stakeholder input and staff input to you. And rather than going through and, you know, because at this point in time, it really should just be about, from your vantage point as an individual board member, your delivery into the board about what you perceive. And again, there's opportunity too, that if you didn't see something on here that's supportive of that, of your strategic plan and going forward, then, you know, there's still time to do that. But in the interest of the Budgetary Procedures Act and the process that we're following, in order for us to meet the timeline related to, as we explained yesterday, the piece or portion of the process that relates to the Governor's Office of Management and budget prep, your staff really needs to know what of these proposals or input as far as the formulation goes for State Fiscal Year 19, do you as board members want to see let out and initiated into the process? And one of the techniques I'm used to, by way of my experience in both the private sector and with the military, is that there should be particulars that you as an individual board member, particular items or business cases, so to speak, that you want to make a motion to and say, I would like to see this as part of our priority of effort on that too. We don't necessarily need to number them. We don't need to say, well, this is number 1 or number 2. That might come later as we get into the session. And if with all the list here, if you don't want to, you know, see something go in initially, we'll still keep it. But that's really what we need to know, is we need to know what business cases do you want to see go forward into the GOMB budget prep system at this point. There's going to be enrollment and there's going to be growth. We know that. So we were just trying to give you some background on that. But what are these other proposals? And given that your objective too was to get stakeholder input, I really feel like we're there. So now it's just really a matter of you're identifying what, based on the input and the study session we had yesterday, but more so all the review time you've had, looking at the business cases, is where do you want to go as an individual that ultimately promotes where the board wants to go as we formulate this together with your stakeholder input. So I would just start with an individual board member making a motion or something on what business case on that too. If there's questions about, because if you make the motion and say, I would like to see this as a priority, then by that way you can discuss it a little bit more and then see how you want to go on that too. It usually works pretty well that way. If we don't get to all of them, we'll still have one more chance at the next October board meeting. But right now it's just ultimately we're at that point where you as an individual board member should have had the opportunity, which we try to give, to review all of these and to establish in your mind what you think is in the best interest of the individual student across the state from a funding perspective.
Yeah. So can we get it brought up on on here. Vice Chair Brittany Cummins.
I just have a question of clarification. Can you remind me the date that we submit this to the governor's office?
Right. Right now, the deadline's around October 7th, and so the board meeting is right like that same right there. So we'll be all right. Jacob Wright has told me that if we need like an additional week after that or whatever, then, we can certainly do that. But we've learned in the past, or at least the last couple of years, and going what Chair Huntsman has said, if we get too bogged down in the minutia of well, I'm not sure I want this or anything like that. If you put it on there, we can always change the priority, even after, again, if it goes to the governor's office process and say the governor doesn't forward it to the legislature, it doesn't mean that we can't still, do it. We're just trying to meet the requirements of code and the Budgetary Procedures Act.
Okay. Board members, the time is now yours to start some dialogue. Okay. Did I see a light from
Yeah, it's.
Board Member
I've
Hanson?
got one, yeah, sorry.
And-
I'm kind of
okay.
hiding. I would move that we make the SAS Trauma Informed Practice Counseling board priority. Did you get that? I couldn't hear her. What did she say?
Can you try that one more time with your mic?
I would move that we make the SAS Trauma Informed Practice Counseling a priority. Can I speak to that? Oh, I need a second. Somebody second?
Okay, we have a motion. Are we finding it? We have a second from Board Member Gravitt into discussion.
If I can speak to that, this is the legislation that Representative Elison is working with the superintendent on, and that he discussed with us briefly when he was here. And so I feel very strongly as I go out and visit with the districts that I have and charters that they need more help in this area. And so I would like to make this a board priority.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there a Board Member Lear?
Is there a way to say that I want this to be a board priority, or we want this to be a board priority, so long as this much money is there? I don't want it to remain as a board priority with the money stripped down to nothing, so that then it looks like we're supposed to do it, but we don't have any resources to do it.
Scott?
I would say absolutely, and your staff would appreciate that too, because if we know that that's the board priority and that funding threshold is where you want to be, then we can represent that and articulate that as when we make the entries into the system and do all that type too, and we can carry that forward or with you, as we progress into the session. Absolutely.
Then
Yeah, we
that
prefer that.
is my, that would be my vote,
Okay.
because I feel like I'm a little reluctant, though I think this is a critical need. I'm a little reluctant as a school board member to take on more social services. But I will do it because it seems to be effective, because kids matter, if there's funding that is adequate for the project.
So would it be safe to say on all of these, if there's funding as we're moving forward, because eventually we're going to put a priority list together?
Yeah,
And-
can I respond?
You bet.
Can I have a thought to that?
Yeah.
I guess I feel more strongly about it on some, I feel more strongly about it on some issues than others, and this is one I feel really strongly about, because to do this well requires some money, and we keep being asked to do it over and over and over with too few resources. So in my opinion, this is one I feel particularly strongly about. Some others, it's like, it's not as labor and resource intensive.
Okay.
That's just a thought.
Okay. Thank you, Board Member Lear. Board Member Lisa Cummins.
And to Board Member Lear's point, I think we need to have more psychologists to be doing this with adequate training as opposed to a school counselor or just counselors at the education level. We are not psychologists, and we will be doing greater harm if we just go through a training and now you're certified. I think that will be extraordinarily more harmful than doing that. My second, and stop me, Chair, if this is inappropriate, but I have been thinking about this yesterday since speaking with Scott and hearing all the list and knowing that we can add things. But I've noticed in the last couple of years, and this will bring up a discussion that Board Member Stokes and I had a couple of months ago, that when the governor has come and asked us to repeal Common Core and we haven't, and the question or the concern has been that there has been no funds to repeal Common Core, that it's $100 million or whatever that spreadsheet that was sent to us dictated. Why not put it in here now? I think this is a good indication. It would show the governor that we're trying to move forward. It would show the state of Utah that we're trying to move forward. And if, I think this would be an ideal situation to take a look at our standards again and request the money to be able to do that here and now.
Let me just help you. You said stop me if, and I hate to stop you. We want to speak to this particular motion, and now you're going into another
I apologize.
part, which is fine. And as a board member, you certainly have that opportunity to advocate whatever it is that you want to move, or that you're bringing up Common Core, and that, which you can definitely put something on the table. This is the time to do it. But I want to kind of keep the dialogue to the
Board Member
content
Hanson's.
of the motion that was made.
Yes.
So
So my first comment goes to Board Member Hanson's comment
and then
about.
the second
Can be
the
a
second will
separate
probably be
discussion.
ignored because it's not part of the
Sure.
motion, and it's not a condition of anything, but it is your comment, and it is valid, but it should
Okay,
come up
thank you.
in another one. Thank you. Superintendent Dixon.
Yeah, I just want to clarify what the training is. This is not a training that would turn a layperson into a counselor. So it's really training that helps all educators, parents, everyone, can access trauma-informed practice training. I personally have just been learning more about it this year, but it's really just becoming more knowledgeable about what to look for in students and to understand where they're coming from and how that impacts academic outcomes. So it's helping provide safe spaces in our schools. So it can be something as simple as, a phrase that hit me when I was learning about this was, if a kid is acting out, a teacher or somebody in school might say, "What is wrong with you?" It's very different than saying, "What's happened to you?" So just simple things that we say can blame the student instead of addressing their circumstances. So this is not to try and promote a training that suddenly turns everyone into a counselor. The prevention specialists would be adding on social workers, counselors, people who are more intensely trained and certified as well in schools. If you look at our Title I schools, for example, who do have social workers or counselors, most of them come from the field of social work because they're dealing with situations of family trauma and other issues. So just want to caution the public and board members that this is not, when we talk about trauma-informed practice, it's not trying to turn everyone into a counselor, but looking for the signs of when would you refer a family or a student for the kinds of services you're talking about. And the family's always involved, obviously.
So I have a
follow
follow-up
up.
question to that then. So you're talking more grammatical errors and more, responding. But what I guess what I'm concerned is, are we looking for the causes and not just reactionary? Does that make sense? Or and this may be out of line as well, but there was a report that came out from a professor from the University of San Diego that said smartphones, the increase of use of smartphones among adolescents had increased with anxiety and depression and suicide. You know, are we looking at that? Are we looking at how much digital learning we're putting in front of these kids, and is that exasperating? Are we, I've seen other studies where it says that standardized testing, the amount of testing that we're doing is contributing to these factors as well. Are we just trying to solve a problem, or are we, you know, the aftermath, or are we trying to solve the problem before it gets to be a problem? Am I making sense? You know, what is the leading cause, and is it on our end that we're doing this? I would like to see that be studied and researched and so that we can, because I think we'll do a lot more greater good going at that route than picking it up on the back end and missing a lot of children that need more help because of what we continue to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Board Member Cannon? I was trying to see if that was.
I just have a question on the motion. So Linda has asked us to be a priority. Are we setting priorities today? And she didn't say what priority, so I'm questioning.
It's a priority without a number, so it's going to be labeled priority. So we're going to put all these priorities together.
Oh.
And then number them. The normal thing is, in order to move, because there's 15 of us, isn't there, here, to move the discussion, we got to get something in there, like on the wall. And then we organize it, and then we prioritize it, and some things can come off afterwards. We make a motion to remove after it's already on. The question is do we want to support the motion to say, yes, we feel that's a priority? It could still be a priority, but we take it off our list because we see that we don't have the funding if these other things trump. So.
All right. Well, when we're done with this motion, may I have another motion for a priority?
You bet.
Okay.
I'm not seeing any lights on, so let's vote on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Voting was unanimous. Board Member Cannon, did you have your?
Yes, I would like to speak to Teaching and Learning Beverly Taylor Sorensen Arts Learning Program.
Are you wanting to put that on
I
the
would
priority
like
list?
to make a motion that also be included as a priority for us.
Okay. And we have a second from Board Member Gravitt. Do you want to speak to the motion?
May I please?
Yes.
Yes, so education literature is replete with studies that tell us that if we want to improve student achievement, we need to include the arts in our education system. And through the generous funding and graces of Beverly Taylor Sorensen, we have been able to get this going. We are to a point now where we have many of our schools who are able to enjoy this program, but in order to get it to more schools, we need some additional funding. The grant money is insufficient, and if we don't have some state support for this program, I fear that it will dwindle away because the grant money will be used up and gone. So I would like to see this included as a priority. I think it's essential for all our kids, and who would want to go to school if you don't get art and music and dance and theater? Yeah, I mean, it just is what makes school so wonderful for children, and it improves their learning. Thank you.
Okay. Board Member Lisa Cummins, did you want to speak to the motion?
No.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm waiting for my.
Okay. Board Member Belknap.
Yep. Scott, can you help me here? How much funding does the Beverly Taylor Sorensen get now, and is it one-time funding? Is it continual funding? Is it above the line or below the line?
We can get that for you, but I'll have to come back to you.
Okay, so-
I can come back to you on that.
So I would make a motion that we table this pending further information. What? Oh, 1 second.
It's
So,
coming.
so it is below the line, but the amounts though, we're gonna have to pull up here real quick.
So you have a
Yeah,
request for,
so the link that Natalie sent all of the board members yesterday, it would have that information for you, but we'll pull it up. We'll get it and let you know how
Can-
much it is.
well, that's coming up. Can we take another and we'll come back to you? So we,
Yeah.
oh,
Brittany first, I think.
yeah. So we're going to answer your question. You had the question. I think we can get it while we're into the discussion and keep it going. Vice Chair comments.
I would just like to add some questions about this particular program. So I know there's a matching, and I'd be curious to know what the matching is from the Beverly Taylor Sorensen organization, how much comes from the legislature, and then how much an LEA is required to match to qualify for the program.
Okay, so Chair,
Yes.
okay,
Scott.
if we may, can we answer Board Member Belknap's question right now and then segue to Vice Chair
Please-
Cummings'
please do.
question? Okay, so go ahead.
So the, the current fiscal year, there is $9.8 million that is ongoing. Those are, of course, below the line programs, but it's all ongoing funding. And then I believe there is around $800,000 that was provided in addition. It was a grant that you approved last month, coming specifically from the foundation to enhance or to fund all of the applications that came in this year.
Now we need to speak to, will you repeat your question, ma'am, please?
How much of the money that's used comes from the state? How much of it comes from other donors such as the Beverly Taylor Sorensen organization? And then how much are LEAs required to match in order to qualify for the program? What percentage of the money comes in?
I know that I can speak to a portion of the, there's an admin appropriation that stays here. It's probably around $100,000 that's not reflected in this 9.8. The 9.8 is passed through to our LEAs, and I believe that the LEAs have to provide a match. I don't know how much that is. We're trying to find someone.
Okay, so we're going to come back to
I
answer
think
that
it's about
question
50%.
here in a minute. So Vice Chair Warner. and
So
then-
have we tabled the Beverly Taylor Sorensen thing?
No.
Or are we still on that? Okay, I thought we were going to talk about something else, so I'll table mine until we move on.
Okay,
Other than I like Janet's motion.
Board Member Reeve.
I'm speaking in support of Janet's motion. I'm an elementary school teacher, and we have struggled to get the arts back in our schools. In the 16 years I've been in elementary school, I have noticed a huge difference. It is delightful to walk down the hallways and see kids' art on the walls again. It's nice to hear them singing. It's nice to see them playing instruments. It's been a tremendous change in our schools. It brings so much joy and happiness to see that type of influence. It's great for the teachers and it's great for the students. And I can tell you, I have seen the difference. I started when there was literally no art in our schools, and it makes a tremendous difference in the demeanor of our schools and the climate. So I support Janet's motion.
Do you want to speak to the motion?
I'll
Board
speak to the
Member
motion.
Cummins.
Yep, I'll speak to the motion. I too will support this because my daughter is a theater productions major in college, and my son is one of my sons is very active in theater, choir, and various other entity of performance. I read an article that said that with all of the STEM, it'll be the theater children that know how to live, and that they will know how to feel and have human interaction and emotion and communication. And I think though that will be an entity needed with all of this STEM push. I think we need to understand that we're still human. We need to see beauty outside of technology and math. So I will support this.
Scott.
Sir, Chair, will you invite Superintendent Shoemaker, because I want to go back to Vice Chair Cummins' question. I think the reason why you're asking what the percentage of the match is whenever we do something here at this level or prioritize something, there's always probably an impact on the LEA, and I think that's really what you want to know. So first of all, I want to demonstrate the staff synergy here. We're in sync. We're not the boy band in sync, but we're in sync here. Okay, and so I would like Angie, your Deputy Superintendent of Policy, to answer your first question. So on that, so
Okay.
go ahead, Angie.
Angie.
So I just checked the statute, and the matching amount is 20%. So LEAs are required to match 20%.
So now, in order to answer your question further, what's the impact on LEAs? I would defer to Superintendent Shoemaker for that answer, please.
So basically, for me to describe it this way, I'll go back to my experience at Wasatch. It starts in a group of schools with a specialist working with a group of schools. And as the funding increases over time and school districts and schools apply for the grant, they also have to make sure that they have the funds to apply the match to it. And so it just simply grows at its pace differently depending on what a school district can do. But I can tell you, I'm pleased to hear this board set it as a priority. It has had a major impact for good in our schools across the state. And school districts are growing at the rate that they can grow it given the match requirement of 20%. So it's just going, it'll get eventually, Beverly Taylor's, I served on that board for a little while. I had her talk to superintendents and others. It is her goal to have this program in every elementary school in the state of Utah.
Board Member Reeby.
It's a great 20% investment because not only are we enhancing the lives of our students, but we are also enabling our teachers to meet collaboratively. We are allowing our teachers time to plan for their day. So it has another benefit that's kind of hidden that I think as a teacher I recognize that some of you might not. That giving a certified teacher a position in the schools also gives the classroom teachers more time to be reflective, join with their peers, and plan at a much more productive rate.
They hire a highly trained individual to go into these schools or a group of schools, depending on the system, highly trained, both from staff here as well as the Beverly Taylor Sorensen group themselves, to teach these kids. And then, as Board Member Reeby is saying, then other teachers can collaborate and continue to work on things. And in our district in particular, we work specifically on ways that we could integrate those efforts with the other things that they were teaching.
And if I could, I should speak to the motion also. I'm very much in favor of this. I've witnessed, I've seen the outcomes. I know in the rural districts that I represent, but I also see it in the urban schools also. It is a part of their culture. It's part of their learning culture. It's embedded in there, and it's going to continue to grow because it's a positive, good thing. It's contagious, and so this is a way to keep that momentum going. And without the support, I don't think I'd like to see the consequences that would come. So I'm speaking in favor. So what questions do we not have answered? That you know of, Scott, or did we answer them, or should I go?
Chair, go to Vice Chair Cummins.
Okay.
I think we're
Vice
probably
Chair
on the same
Cummins.
page
Just
here.
the last part of my question was, is this fully funded by the state, or are there other donors that participate in funding this program?
So in the past, the foundation has provided additional resources or private funding on top of the amount that's funded by the state. This year, that amount was $865,000, $856, and that funded the applications that came in for the programs that came in, but it's been indicated to us that that's not sustainable long-term by the foundation.
Not seeing any other comments. Let's vote on the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Voting is unanimous. Okay. The lights are going pretty quick, but I believe Vice Chair Warner won a long time ago. Oh, no, hang on. Nope, you didn't. I forgot. She's always had hers on, so you got beat by Board Member Lisa Cummins and then Vice Chair Warner.
So tell me now if this is appropriate, Chair. I'd like to open up a case study to go forward and review the standards, the Utah core standards, and put that in the budget. Because we've been told in the past, there's no money. Now that the governor has come twice in 2 years, asking us to do something to come together and start doing this, we now have an opportunity to say, now we need a budget to do that. We would like to move forward and do that.
So your motion is to open a case study to address
The Utah core standards, and put it on the priority list.
Okay.
Chair, we can certainly do that.
Thank you.
So what the process will take, though, is we'll have to analyze just how much that will cost to do the case analysis and all that, and then we can put it in a business case, okay?
Okay,
Would that
that would be fine.
satisfy
Yep.
Board Member Cummings, but also the board members too?
Okay, so we have.
We need some more time to do that, but we certainly can do that. It's not too late.
Okay, well, as long, I mean, if we
We'll
start the
start
process.
a motion and, well, first we'll get a second.
Okay,
And
motion
then vote
to
on it, and then
put on that.
we can start that. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I can second. I just want to clarify.
Okay, a second from Vice Chair Ellis. Discussion, Vice Chair Ellis.
So I just wanted to make sure I understand. So right now, this motion is just to have, I mean, Lisa made a motion, but you're saying that won't quite fly because first we need to analyze how much it would cost to do a case study?
No,
Okay.
actually, I'm saying that motion does fly, right? We
Okay.
can do that. All I'm saying is in order
Sorry
for
for
us.
my verbiage.
No, yes, ma'am, that's okay. We can do that. I'm just managing expectations that it will take us a while to get it into a business case and arrive at how much that would cost. Is that,
To then present to
Well,
the
that's what
to
governor.
the
then
business case
present to
is.
you? Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
right.
Yeah, I just need time,
Yeah,
we need time to
absolutely.
do the analysis.
No,
About managing
absolutely. And that,
expectations.
but I'm just glad to get it on there and start the process.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Board Member Reeby? Or, I'm sorry. Oh. Are you speaking to the motion?
Not to the motion.
I know, I'm not speaking to the motion either.
And
Okay.
I want to speak to the motion.
Okay, you want to speak to the motion? Okay, I'm just looking
Right.
to, Board Member Lear.
I just wanted some clarification. My recollection, which could be wrong, was that the governor said, if you want to explore the core curriculum further, the standards further, you would need to come up with the money. He didn't promote that idea, was my recollection, but rather that it would cost a significant amount of money, and if you do propose to do that, be prepared to come up with some money. Could somebody clarify that for me in my recollection?
Letter, do you want to look at it?
Sure,
Okay.
I would. That would help a ton.
Scott?
I love real hard evidence.
To Board Member Lear's question, Jacob Wright is here from the Governor's Office of Management and Budget, so he's researching exactly what the governor said. So we either would need to come back to that at a later point. I don't necessarily think that question stops the motion or anything, does it? Or do you want to know that
Oh,
before
no, I
you
don't
sub-
need to know it in
Right.
the moment. I can't
Yeah.
vote on this until I
Yeah.
want to have accurate information. But this
Okay.
is there anything more recent? This is May 2016.
year also. He brought the same letter when he came.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So that's the one he handed us.
Okay, and no, doesn't stop it, it just makes me unable to vote until I know more,
Okay.
but that's
All
me.
right.
Well, what we're voting on is to start the case study to see what this would.
That's all. Yeah.
What it would cost. It doesn't,
Well, that's what they're going to find out, and then they're going to come back and present the amount that they've discovered that it would take, and then we'll put it in the case study.
Vice Chair Brittany Cummins.
We're not funding anything right now.
So I was just wanted to clarify this as well. I'm uncertain why we need a motion to open up a case study where, if a board member wanted to begin this process, because if we make this vote, I'm guessing it's not on the priority list yet. But
It
it's
is
just to
not.
open the case study, and so is a request sufficient rather than a motion?
Chair.
Okay. Vice Chair Ellis.
Well, I would echo what Vice Chair Cummins has said, because I found out from other board members that all they did was call and say, will you open a case study? So I don't think that it's necessary to have
Okay.
a vote on opening this once the case study's done, presented then, if I'm correct.
You're absolutely correct, but you're in our board meeting and she's wanting to give direction in our board meeting, which it comes in the form of a motion. Instead of just taking care of business outside of it, it doesn't hurt to make a motion and get a second. And if it doesn't fly, she can still open up but out of respect to the board member that wants to start the case study in a public setting, under our rules, I think it is appropriate. If she's choosing to do that. Board Member Cannon.
In my recollection, I have in my mind a picture of Spencer Stokes in the newspaper and some committee discussion on this issue and something about how much it was going to cost, which was a lot.
$100 million was
I just
quoted.
wonder if this passes and we go through and get this, if we can have financial data for us to consider along with it.
Superintendent Jones.
Absolutely. We just need time. We just need time to put that together, and we'll come back to you.
Vice Chair Warner, did you want to comment?
No, I'm still waiting to,
Start your own.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm in a rush.
Okay. Well, you're next. I'm not seeing any further discussion. Let's vote on the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, with the nays, the nays raise their hand. Hold on. Okay, let's.
Can I explain
Okay.
my vote?
Well, we're raise them high if you're a nay.
And,
Okay. The motion passes.
but Chair, can I explain
You
my
bet.
vote?
Yeah.
I'm voting no, I'm voting no because I don't want to spend staff time on this when I will not support this. I don't find this letter exactly the way it was represented, and I don't want to spend my time on it. I don't want to spend the board's time on it, even though this is just an exploratory first move. That's my
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Vice Chair Warner.
Okay, I just had a couple questions before I want to make something a priority. Last year, for the first time, Sir Jones, we made teacher supply money not a one-time fund, like an ongoing fund, but it was only a certain amount, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so in this, with the growth that we're having, are we asking for that same amount? Because I'm not seeing it on here, but with the growth, should we have that on as a ongoing or one-time funding to increase that? Because we didn't get, I can't remember what all the teachers got, but 200, hey, you got a little bit more, yeah, you got a little more, okay. Yeah, so I'm just trying to figure that out.
Okay.
So
Angela.
last year, or in fiscal year 17, last year, there was $6 million one time. The current fiscal year, those funds were moved to ongoing, which is good, but it's now $5 million.
Okay.
So it was reduced by $1 million and moving it up to one time. And we currently do not have a business case in here for teacher supplies. Teacher supply money does not receive growth like other areas within the WPU. And so if the board wanted to request additional funds, you would need to make that a priority. We did do a study 2 years ago that indicated how much money was needed to raise teachers up to different thresholds. I don't have that in front of me right this second, but we could send that out I know that not all teachers with the $5 million, not all teachers are getting the amounts that are recommended by statutes. I think the LEAs are giving priority to newly established teachers first with the full amounts, and then it declines or is prorated down. Is that correct?
You know, I think then that I would like, before I make a motion on that, I'd like to know what it would cost to bring all of the teachers up. Because I understand that your newer teachers may need a little bit more, but Ginny, instead of shopping at DI for books, could maybe use a little bit of funding for books at my house. So I'm just curious before I make that motion, what it would cost to bring all of the teachers up? Because as things have changed, teachers that have been teaching longer than 5 years probably need to change some things. So if you could let me know,
Okay.
thanks. Then I'll make that motion to increase that.
Well, so what would happen in our next meeting? So you're requesting to
I
make,
just want to know, like, if you could give it to me, like,
Yeah.
in the next 15 minutes.
We could,
oh, okay,
yeah, if
All
we
right.
could come back to that, we
can-
can do that.
okay. A board member, okay, I think Scott had you beat. Board member Nielsen.
She's mad because, well, I wouldn't say mad. We have the same goal. I just want to make sure the conversation is over. We finished with your conversation, Terrell, because I don't want to be stealing any of your thunder.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to wait for that number, and then I'm going to make a motion after that. So move ahead.
Oh, because I was going to make a different motion to support.
Well, you can.
Okay, go
Oh,
ahead.
perfect. Okay, so I move that we prioritize, and I've got 3 of them here, and I'm going to round it down to 1, okay? Because there's 3 that I'm real passionate about. CTE, dual language immersion, and that next one is digital teaching and learning, and here's why. The governor came out the other day, and I follow this pretty religiously, but the governor came out the other day that Utah has more jobs in this field than we have people that are able to qualified people that can take those jobs.
Hold it, I'm trying to get your motion.
And so my motion is, sorry about that, is that we prioritize digital teaching and learning as
On the,
as what's that? Say that again? Yeah, as maybe even as an extension of funds,
Hit that minus.
if that makes any sense. Sorry, I didn't introduce that motion the correct way, Laura.
digital
Teaching and learning.
teaching and learning. I'm trying to keep up on this too. So we have a motion to prioritize digital teaching and learning. We have a second. Now we're going to discussion.
Oh, now I can speak to it?
Now you can speak to the motion, and then we've got some other lights probably coming on.
Well, I'm a very huge supporter of the arts. I appreciate Janet when she brought that up, because that's big reason why kids come to school, because they want to be involved in those types of things. But let's look at the reality of things now. The kids, we're going to have those, and those aren't going anywhere. They're extremely important to me, and I hope they are to every one of you, and it looks like they are. But the jobs right now are not, particularly the high-paying jobs are not there. They are in engineering and technology. And that's why I feel like it's something that we should prioritize so we can have students that are ready to go out and take those jobs. I have students, in fact, I'll be very quick with this and very brief. Another one was CTE for me. My high school, Maple Mountain High School, just took the national championship in welding. And we've got organizations banging down our doors to come and get Mr. Maxick's kids at $25, $30 an hour, and they're 18 years old, because of these skills that they've learned. And they may not go do those things, but a lot of them are. And so engineering, mechanics, digital teaching and learning are extremely important. But I just wanted to kind of mention that.
Okay. Kathleen, Board Member Reeby.
I'd like to also support this priority. It goes against all of our strategic plan imperatives. It provides educational equity, quality learning, and system values. It's not just about getting jobs. It's about opening the world up to everyone by using a computer. It's about providing a view of the world that is through these devices. It's about providing the same quality of education across our whole spectrum of our demographics. It's not about STEM. It's about every type of curriculum. And I believe that this specific thing is locally controlled. every school has the ability to use those funds the way that they would like to further their mission, further their cause, and to meet their needs individually of their school. So I really support this because it does provide local control. It does give project-based learning, and it does provide with equity, quality learning, and system values.
Thank you, Vice Chair Warner, and then Chair Huntsman.
Okay, Scott, could I ask something to clarify?
Sure.
No.
Oh,
This Scott.
Board Member Nielsen.
If you would consider when we have, Board Member Nielsen, yes.
Sorry.
When okay, you mentioned the digital teaching and learning and the dual language immersion and then the CTE.
I only
All in
took,
one.
I only
Went
took the one.
Right.
He went one.
You
Yeah, I
didn't
only
put
did
CTE,
one.
are you saying CTE then?
Oh, I would have done all three of those, but I rounded it
one
down
at a
to the
time.
digital teaching and learning because I thought that was only be able to make a motion on
Okay,
one of those.
I just want to clarify on the CTE, we have keyboarding and you're not talking about that one
No,
specifically?
negative.
Okay, because I just want that to be
Not
CTE,
prioritizing
not
keyboarding.
Keyboarding, okay,
The motion on the
that's why I just,
table is
we talked about, okay.
Yeah.
thanks.
to prioritize the digital teaching and learning. Okay, and then I'll speak. I just want to not speak against any of the previous motion in this, but I just wanted to clarify a little bit from the person that's trying to hire people right now from Vegas clear up into the Salt Lake area in the computer world right now. My very best employees have some kind of art and or music background. And then when you look at successful programs on the digital teaching and learning side, people that are getting into that, they have some kind of foundation with, they're tied to the arts, which include the music. So they actually complement each other as you're moving through. And that's based only on my professional experience and also what I've seen in classrooms. So they kind of tie together. And I don't think they compete. To complement. Vice Chair Ellis.
I have some hesitation, not because I don't value digital learning or teaching, but simply in the fact that there's still been a lot of back and forth with the legislature on how they want to move this forward. And in some cases, it seems as if they have a specific view of how these programs should be implemented, which kind of supersedes local control. And as I went out to Daggett County this week to meet with the superintendent there and to other counties and some of the frustration that they felt in the process, and I don't want to exacerbate that problem. And so I'm struggling because I see benefits in allowing people to use it how they want, but I also have kids that have one of the first adopters in the digital teaching and learning world in Wasatch County, and there has been a lot of hiccups and problems along the way, and my kids have not thoroughly enjoyed the process and have felt like their education has actually been detrimental because of the process. And so so I have a lot of back and forth on this because I see its value, but also if it's not done properly, there can be a lot of problems.
Board Member Cannon.
I'm very in favor of digital teaching and learning. I think this is the way our world is going, and we owe it to our kids to give them opportunities to experience this, to learn things. As I'm looking through the business case, I'm seeing lots of these that are utilizing this to personalize education for each student, which I think is something that is so important and necessary that I'm thrilled that we can utilize these funds to do it. And hopefully, I think we got one-time funding for it, and they're asking for additional one-time funding and to make some of that funding ongoing. I don't think it's going away. I think this is the way our society is going, and we need to have our kids ready to be able to exist in this world.
Okay, Board Member Hanson.
I have a question for Member Belknap. Because she's been working on digital teaching and learning a lot, their committee has, and it's a pet project of a particular legislator. And so my question is, do you think we're good there? Have we straightened out all the bumps the legislature? Are we all on the same page right now? Or are we creating something that legislator does not want to see happen?
Board Member Belknap, do you want to respond?
Thank you. I think if we got rid of all the bumps, that would be miraculous in any setting. However, we have been given reins, is what I would say. Our reins have been loosened, and we've been able to move forward. And now the districts and schools are owning their programs now. And so any more anything they want to interject in there, it's really given to them. And Sarah has great oversight of that. She reports to us every month, and it's awesome.
Okay, not seeing any further discussion. Let's vote on the motion. The motion is to move the digital teaching and learning to the priority list. Not seeing any. Let's vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Voting was what? Okay. Opposed? Okay. Do you have them? One. Hands? Yep, Michelle. And Elisa. Voting was not unanimous, but the motion passes. We're gonna have to stop.
Okay.
We're running out of time.
Right.
So we're gonna put, based on results, we're gonna put more time in this.
Yes, sir. So this is good progress. It's not, what if we can just talk on this though, is there anything that you've reviewed, what I'd ask the board to consider at this point, is there anything that you've reviewed at this point that you would not want to see go forward? I mean, I think that might help us to kind of close at this point and see if there's anything that you don't want to see go forward. Of any of the proposals, is there anything that you do not want to see go forward?
Board Vice Chair Cummins?
And I don't know if it needs to come into motion, because obviously this is my opinion, but the 7th and 8th grade CTE and the dual immersion requests.
Okay. So during the study session, we spoke to both of those. So there's 2 CTE requests. There's 7 and 8, and there's keyboarding.
And the keyboarding.
Okay. So I think it's really important at this point. I know we're out of time, Chair, but if we could invite Superintendent Shoemaker up, it's value added that he talks to you about whether you keep this, whether the board keeps CTE completely off or out, or whether we want to put money into the WPU for that.
Okay, very good. We'll invite Superintendent Shoemaker, and then just to talk to it, we don't have a motion, but Board Member Reby,
Can I ask a question before he comes up here? So CTE, it mentions 7th and 8th grade, and in light of some of the decisions we just made, can we expand that out for CTE? Because if we have 7th and 8th grade CTE labeled specifically, it might change my opinion.
If you're asking me that question, I don't know that I have the experience to do that, but we would need Talia to work with you on that. My concern about expanding the funds for CTE is this. For federal programs, you have to have maintenance of effort, which means for a school district, X number of dollars we're putting into it right now has to be kept the same or expanded. If additional dollars are coming from another source, then the school district then has to come up with the percentage increase of additional dollars to have the maintenance of effort. So as the school district superintendents talked about that, we have a concern about how far do you expand this in terms of your dollar increase. That could clearly create a serious maintenance of effort problem for some school districts. That's the concern I want to put in front of you relative to that. And for that reason, I think we would probably want to have a study session around that issue to see how big of a problem it is. Because when we discussed it recently, that was the concern that came up from superintendents, the maintenance of effort. I didn't hear Brittany's motion.
well, she didn't make a motion.
Was to not prioritize it.
Correct.
Yeah, we would support that at this point.
Yeah.
However, that's not saying we don't support CTE programs. It's the issue of how do we fund the maintenance of effort.
So is that Board Member Cannon, did you have something? Oh,
I was just looking at another and seeing if I could make an amendment to the motion.
well, there's not a motion yet.
I'm sorry, I thought you made a motion.
She just answered she answered a question that Scott had, so
Then can I ask another question?
you can ask a question.
Okay. So when we were going over these in Finance Committee, we went to the one about USBA or USBE digital signage, and you indicated that that was not a large amount and that perhaps it could be handled in-house. And so if that is the case, maybe we could take that off and put more emphasis favoring something else.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to take the signage off.
Yes. Yes, we'll take the digital signage off and just take care of that with carry forward, no worries. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we don't have a motion yet. So are we seek? I know, well, I'm just saying back to this, we answered a question. Are you going to make a motion on that? But I know you're here, Vice Chair Warner, so.
No, she can make her motion. I'm on back to my other thing, really
Okay.
quick.
So I move that we remove or not prioritize the CTE 6 and 7, the keyboarding, and the dual immersion.
Do we have a second? Further discussion, Scott Jones?
Okay, key critical piece on the dual immersion part. We have lacked sufficient funding in an ongoing fashion to do the assessments. And I need to make that as a qualifier to you, that because right now within the dual immersion business case, it talks about adding funding, but it does have a $400,000 requirement for assessment. So if board members consider that, we need to make sure that we have that. That is one of the issues that we've had, because as you know, when we first started here, we were really identifying shortfalls or gaps, so to speak, of funding supporting all of that too. So we currently do not have an ongoing identified source for assessments related to dual immersion.
Which is required.
Which is,
It's required to assess.
Okay,
yeah,
so Superintendent,
So
That's a good idea.
yes.
may I
this
make
can
an
be checked
amendment?
on. Board Member Lisa Cummins.
So if I may make an amendment, and Scott, maybe you can correct me, can we lower the asking request from $959,000 to $400,000 just to cover the testing?
Yes, you certainly could do that. And that, we just as your staff, we need to make sure that we're identifying within the business cases too.
That it goes
shortage
directly?
or gaps in funding.
Okay,
and
so
we're
it's
doing
to
that right
restore
now.
gaps
Yes,
in funding for the testing for dual immersion,
Right.
for
Okay.
dual language immersion.
I think we're going to a place that's different. Definitely different. The motion was to not make these a priority.
Right.
Oh,
And
so
so the
it would
amendment
have to be a new amendment.
isn't adding or taking away from
Put dual immersion back on.
from the motion. But it's
It'd
certainly
have to be a new amendment.
something worth
Or a
talking
new-
about, but I don't think it's tight, I don't think you can amend.
So it'd
our
have to be a
motion
new
is to take
motion.
it off the-
So I went out of order.
Yeah, you can amend, take the dual immersion off.
You can,
So
you
my
can amend
amendment is
have
to
that
take the
particular
dual
item,
immersion
yeah.
off. There we go. Thank you.
So,
And then we'll go from there. Thank you.
to the motion, I don't think that your motion has stated,
So the motion is to take off from Brittany's original motion to take off the teaching and learning dual language immersion.
okay,
And then I will put forth another motion
Okay.
regarding that
Okay.
after this
we have a
vote.
motion to remove that from the dual immersion, that teaching, learning, dual immersion, dual immersion. Okay, so that So do we have a second to the amendment? Okay, Laura. Any further discussion to take it off? See none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, voting was unanimous, so we're going to go back to the motion, which was, will you repeat that now with it not being there?
So it would be to not prioritize the CTE 7 and 8 and CTE keyboarding.
Okay. So the motion's been amended. So any further discussion? So we'll vote to the amended motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Laura? Voting was unanimous.
No.
No, it wasn't unanimous. No, we had one. I'm thinking lunch for some reason. It's going to be supper here pretty quick. Okay, Vice Chair Warner, your question?
No, I got my question answered, so I just want to make a motion to add $4 million to the teacher supply money as a priority. Actually, do you want me to be specific? $4,166,850.
Got it.
What was
Ongoing.
on there before?
$5
There wasn't a placeholder.
So we're lowering it?
No, we want to add that to the $5 million.
Okay, it's a new ask. Okay, Scott?
I believe Vice Chair Warner's motion is for the staff to construct a business case that requires an additional $4,166,000 and change for that. I think that's the motion that you're going at. Is that correct,
Yes.
Vice Chair Warner? Okay.
Yes, that's exactly what I said.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do we have a second? Lots of seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? Oh, sorry.
I just have a question. So there is ongoing money for this now in what amount?
5 million.
5 million. It's been 5 million for years and years and years. So by adding this additional, will it then be fully funded for all teachers?
Yes.
Yahoo, let's do that.
Based,
Okay,
Oh.
Scott?
so based on the surveys that were conducted and the amounts that were provided back to us on what teachers pay out of pocket, but then also considering the IRS, other factors, things like that, the additional 4 million would give about a little over $9 million. And then for that too, that would get them to the point of what they said at that time of the survey, which is how old now? 2 years old now, that's what we would arrive at. I just want to be clear on that, okay? Is that,
$275.
right.
We can update the numbers
We
with
can-
teacher counts when we do the business case.
We can update the amounts with teacher counts when we do the business cases, but you're getting closer by about a $9 million total. But what you're asking for, what Vice Chair Warner's motion was we'll do a business case asking for an additional amount of $4 million as ongoing to get it to $9 million ongoing. Does that make sense? Does that, okay? Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Oh, did we vote on it? No, we didn't vote on it. Because I don't have it checked off we voted. So let's vote on it. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Voting, oh, did you say no?
No, I did not.
Okay, voting
Just wanted to get my.
Voting was unanimous. I'm going to end this right now. We're not going to add any more.
Can I?
We are, yeah, okay.
If I just can amend the teaching, learning, and dual language immersion number before we go forward. We took it off and we just need to amend the number.
Well, you're welcome to amend it, not because it's off, to something different, but I've got all these
Can I
lights
do that
coming
off?
on. And we're
Can I do that
not going to
offline?
get through our day with everybody that wants, you have an amendment, we've got, well, let's just so that you don't forget, we'll just do one more for you, Board Member Cummins. And this is going to be it. We gotta draw the line, but remember this experience of what you want to do, so we're prepared next time
Yes, sir.
to just move right through it, not have the big pause that we had in the beginning. Okay,
Okay, not that I'm
Before we
using,
get the motion,
right, so so I'm not using Jedi mind tricks here, but what we're doing is I think what Board Member Cummins' motion is now that we've removed dual language
It's still there.
it's still there, but what her motion is, it hasn't been removed, but what her motion is to adjust the amount of the ask to $400,000 that's conducive of ensuring adequate funding for
testing,
the assessment of dual language immersion students.
Correct.
That's her motion.
you want to, give us so moved.
So moved.
Okay. Do we have a second? We have a second. Any further discussion? Board Member Reeby.
I am hesitantly against this because the testing requires a ton of time. And it's a smaller population. It takes up a lot of lab time. It takes excessive amount of time to test these students. So the assessment is kind of a hard thing to do in the school. So I kind of have a problem with the assessment part of it.
Okay, Vice Chair Ellis.
So my question is, and forgive me if you answered this a couple steps back, what does it look like if we don't prioritize this? Because statutorily, we're required to do the assessment. Do we just go in the hole? Or what does it look like?
Let-
Oh, it's
Angie.
not. I thought that was what sorry, that was my understanding.
No.
Oh, sorry,
Yes, Angie.
Okay.
Yeah, I just checked both code and board rule, and there's not a requirement for the assessment. I think it's probably just been the implementation of the program. They thought it was a good idea for the evaluation.
It's actually,
Go ahead.
it's actually necessary for evaluation because what you're evaluating is the language acquisition. Have they acquired the language as part of the dual immersion program? So it's language acquisition and ensuring that they're on pace with other metrics. So that's where my thinking was. But I don't think the evaluation is mentioned as well. But if you're going to do an evaluation, you have to.
Chair, if I might just speak to my motion.
Yes.
This is a very popular program and people do want to see it expanded, especially when a child has spent their whole elementary and they want to continue it into middle school and high school and possibly into a career. So I'm going to say, please vote for this. I think it needs so that they know that they're doing the right thing to go forward.
Okay. Yes.
So short. Just a little history of the funding and how it began. I think it's about 2 years ago, the chair of the Public Ed Appropriations Committee prioritized one-time money for the assessment, but it was one time. And so after that assessment got off the ground, there was no ongoing funding to continue it.
Vice Chair Ellis.
So my question kind of still stands. What does it look like if we didn't prioritize this, given superintendent's concerns that the assessment part is not required, but kind of a necessity? And would the districts then have to eat the cost to do this? Or would we go in the hole? I just am trying to understand exactly where we'd be. Or would they just choose not to do the assessment?
Scott.
So what it boils down to is because we don't have an ongoing source to support the assessment, we would either have to take it from another program internally or, cut it. Just don't do it. So, I mean, again, it's not, there's not a legal requirement to do it, but that's where we're at with this, is we can no longer sustain this with it without taking it from another program. So I think that's the decision point. Do you want an assessment or do you not want an assessment? I mean, and if you do, then we need to prioritize asking for $400,000 ongoing and then move forward accordingly.
Vice Chair Ellis.
I apologize. I just want to, the local districts could still do, I'm just trying to understand how necessary a statewide assessment would be for this, or if districts could still offer an assessment or find something, because this program is very popular across the country, there may be assessment tools that a local district could pick up. Anyone?
Come on up, Carl.
Get turns on. Do I just push? Thanks, sorry. So the assessment that we are requesting is Carl Bowman, World Language and Dual Language Immersion Specialist, Teaching and Learning. The assessment that we are asking funding for is critical to the implementation and evaluation of the Dual Language Immersion Program. And because it's not a mandated test, and because we're looking and seeking for kind of oral proficiency as they go up through the system, it's critical for us to be able to measure the efficacy of the model and the efficacy of language acquisition. So this test really gives us that oral proficiency measure that we need to show to parents who really don't have any other measure of being able to know where their students are. So the parents really want this, and this is a test that they do not want to opt out, because it shows what progress the children are making in that model that they're doing first through 9.
Do you have a follow-up?
No, I don't feel like I'm getting my question answered. I mean, I appreciate that information. I'm just trying to figure out locally, I need to understand why this has to be state level, why this can't be district level.
It could be district level, but since it's a test that is not mandated, many districts would opt not to have an assessment of this kind to be able to give the parents that information. So for the integrity of the model, we would want that information, because what we're going to see is that because it's expensive, not that expensive, but expensive enough for the districts to say it really isn't worth it for us to pay for this assessment. That's what we're assuming. Don't know that for sure.
Which I just want to, I know, and I'm going against what I'm trying to do to get to lunch here and also get us back on track. We've got a lot to deal with. If it comes back to, are the local, or are the LEAs doing any kind of testing at all on their level? Is that known?
We know that they are not doing any testing on their own for dual language immersion for the specific language-specific testing. We know that they're doing the testing for ELA and other areas, but not for the language-specific piece.
And I would think that if I had a child or children in the program, that I'd be leaning on my district to say, okay, let's be accountable here to all these dollars, and I'm doing it at a local level. And the fact is, I don't know if it's a fact or not, but I'm assuming based on the input here that they're not. So that almost sends a message to me that the local districts are not seeing this as a priority to find the funds to keep this particular program alive and going, similar to what happens with other programs where they're partially funded, but they're not funded clear to the end, and they find their money and they make it happen. And so I'm actually a little confused, and I'm speaking a little bit against the motion here. So any other comments? Yes, Superintendent.
Chair, just real quickly, Superintendent Shoemaker, and I really believe it'll get to the question too, in addition to what Mr. Bowman has already asked.
I think Board Member Ellis knows in Wasatch County, it's very, very, very popular. In fact, I tried to restrict it as superintendent and was almost run out of town by not the parents, but frankly by the teachers as well. Because I wanted to manage the growth of the program. And so to answer your question, Mr. Huntsman, Chair Huntsman, is this: there was always 2 people waiting in line to take one person's spot. The demand was greater than that, and so the demand for accountability was much less than the demand to get in the program, is the answer to your question there. And I think that's, and I don't have the data in front of me, but I suspect that that's still true across the state. I know for sure it was true in the school district where I was at, in Wasatch School District. This idea of testing the kids is a wonderful idea. The dollar amount's not significant. I would urge you to seriously consider it. It's problematic for school districts to pay for this. Could they do it? Yeah, they might be able to do it, those who chose to do it, but there'd be a whole bunch who chose not to, just as been suggested.
Board Member Reeby.
So the conversation we started when we delayed lunch was, what do we not prioritize? Now we've gone back to what we are prioritizing. I do not feel comfortable prioritizing this over other things. The question was, what are we not prioritizing now? When we look at everything on this list, they're all priorities to us. They are all priorities. When we look at our strategic plan, it's system values, educational equity, and one more. I'm sorry. I don't feel that this is the best use of our WPU. I think it's a priority, just like I think it's a priority for everything on this list. If I look at my funding, when you try to get your kid into dual immersion, it is a small little group now, and there are many people that want to get into it. But unless we can fund it for every parent that wants to get into it, I have a problem funding it more than I want to use strategic special ed, more than I want to do CTE, more. I mean, this is not what we're talking about right now. We're talking about what we didn't want to prioritize, not what we do. So we're off target. This is not what the conversation should be. If that was something that you wanted to prioritize, we should have started the conversation that way.
Yep. I agree. Board Member or Vice Chair Ellis.
Okay, sorry, I just have another question about these tests. So right now, are we mandating that the districts offer this test? Because going to Board Member Reeby's comment about it taking up a lot of lab time, are we allowing districts to choose not to if they choose so?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. It's very optional.
Okay, thanks, Terry. Are you wanting to comment again?
Call to question.
What's that?
Call to question.
Okay. Well,
Will you
we're going to end debate.
Will you restate the motion? I'm not sure that the motion was to make this a priority. It was just to change the dollar amount.
Just to change the dollar amount. That was the motion, is to
That was the
change
motion.
the dollar amount from, I can't remember what it was.
It was
to-
959,000 down to 400,000 for
Oh, that's right.
the testing,
Okay.
or the assessments, I should say.
All right, that's, okay, so we're going to vote. We're ending debate. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Voting was unanimous. It's to the vote to the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Nay. I don't care. I'm not a fan of the. Well, they were really weak. So the nays raise their hand.
That's just me being contrary, Lorraine.
Okay.
Chairman Huntsman,
Yes.
I know you wanted to close this, but I feel a real need to speak to something. May I have the floor for a moment?
Yes, Board Member Cannon.
Okay, so I've been around, been doing this for a long time, and one of the things that they have a business case for is enrollment growth. And to me, it's just a no-brainer. We are adding all these kids to our system. We have to have funding for it. I don't think it should have to be a priority for our board. I think it is an expectation, and I've been here in years where they've added some 14,000 students to the system with zero money. And think about the number of schools, the number of desks, the number of teachers that locals had to absorb because they did not fund growth. So I think that growth goes on there as an expectation right at the top, and that we should not have to prioritize it with these other programs.
Well, it wasn't a motion, wasn't a comment.
It was an impassioned plea.
And I think it's implied that a couple of those, the WPU and those other things are already going to be
Yeah,
there.
Scott
And then we
explained that at the
fine tune, we
beginning.
said that in the beginning.
Okay,
Scott?
just real quickly, enrollment, growth, and the WPU, they're already there. They're, well,
Okay.
so here, Chair, if I may, we can close
Yes.
this now, but may I say how we need to close this, if that's okay?
Yes.
Okay, here's what needs to happen, please, is between now and your next board meeting, I really need each one of the individual board members to go in and look at this list one more time and come back and say, what do you not want to prioritize? What do you not want to see? We're going to prioritize the WPU and we're going to prioritize enrollment. We always do that. That's it. But what these other ones are actual identified programs that your stakeholders, whether it's your staff or external stakeholders, feel are necessary, that in addition to WPU and growth, are necessary to meet your strategic objectives. Okay? And right, anything is possible, but everything is not. But it just helps the staff move forward knowing what you would like to see in there. And we will take the other additions and we will bring those back to you. There's still time. We have plenty of time. The other piece too is, if you, as an individual board member, if you'll please consider what percentage of the WPU you want to put forward as a board, okay? And then as the process goes, you'll see that your priorities and the WPU and growth and all that will come together. It'll come together, and will we be able to get everything funded? We don't know yet, and all that stuff too, but you're really well on the track towards the GOMB requirement, but then more importantly, when we get into the legislative process, you're starting to see what you're going on, putting as far as meeting your strategic plan. It's really good. We're getting there. Okay.
So the so what on this is do your homework, get ready, make your list. This isn't a place to go through discovery, but we can, but it takes a lot of time, so just be prepared in our next meeting.
And I will say this too, I had several board members call and ask me questions or email me questions about the business case, about the impact. We will answer those for you so that you don't necessarily feel like you have to wait until the board meeting to come here and get your questions answered on those. We're here for you, okay?
Okay.
We'll do that.
Thank you, Superintendent.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Sir Jones said. And, yesterday during the work session, there were a lot of distractions. And that was a time when we were trying to really go through all of these. Staff has put they've made a hard stop on things that they were doing to get these business cases prepped and ready for you all. And so I want to honor the hard work of staff, and staff is responding to what they hear in the field, to what people say they need. And so just know that, and they're wanting your reaction and your input. And we appreciate the thoughtfulness of which you approach this, and appreciate it when you call, as Scott said, and ask us questions for clarification. You're seeing staff look a little bit exasperated right at this moment, and not myself included, because for us, this is a real critical decision point that we don't want to make those decisions. We see that as your role, and feel that it's a critical point so that we're not stepping into January in the session and we're back to what Board Member Stokes see as an act of futility. But, it's that cherry picking all over the place, and we're really trying to be preemptive. So we just appreciate your attention to this and the seriousness with which you're taking this. We know it's hard because Board Member Nelson's right. And as several of you have said, we want everything, like everything is important. And what are you giving up? So we need to be able to step forward with confidence saying these are aligned to board priorities. These are the things our board feels strongly about, even though we believe everything is important. So thank you.
And also know when this gets to the end, there will be winners and losers on this. And so, and it's as we get into the debate and that on the priority, of course, we all wear our brass pants when we come in here and we go back and forth on certain issues and that. But this is a time and this is a season when we're dealing with this. So the better we're prepared, in our next round, the more success we'll have. But I think we had success today, even though we're behind on schedule. So this is what we're doing. We're breaking. We're going to go grab our lunch, and we're coming right back in here as soon as possible. So please, board members, if hit the facility, say your highs and buys or whatever you're doing quick on the phone, but please hustle back in here so we can try to get some of these important things done that need to get done before 5 o'clock. So thank you.